I'll be able to hang in there.
What was the injury?
My knee.
According to SpotTrack.com, the Green Bay Packers have 20 pending free agents, and I will talk about each of them to various degrees in this video. But first, it's important to talk about the salary cap situation. The Packers are currently $2.6 million already over the 2026 cap, with projections from Ken Ingalls on Twitter. He's the #1 Packers salary cap guy, so go check him out with any more in-depth questions. But because of already being over the cap, the Packers cannot go re-signing their own players or signing other teams' players once free agency opens. But also, they do not just need to get over the cap to sign free agents, they need to create more cap space because there are future costs that they must factor in. The Packers have to include future costs for proven performance escalator raises for Kraft, Wicks, Brooks, and Valentine. They are most likely signing their 4 exclusive rights free agents to non-guaranteed zero-risk minimum salaries. They have to re-sign the practice squad members to future contracts and later fill the practice squad. They have to sign their NFL draft picks. They have to consider veteran per game bonuses. They have to consider practice squad elevations during the season and have a contingency fund for injuries, trades, and extensions also within the season. With all of this included, Ken Ingalls predicts the Packers to be effectively at $19 million over the cap. Now, this does sound bad, but they do have some options to free up cap space. Elgton Jenkins and Rashawn Gary are fairly obvious cut candidates due to their level of play and contracts. Elgton Jenkins held out in the offseason in hopes for a more lucrative contract, but the Packers didn't fold. He eventually got hurt and missed about half of the season after a mediocre performance at center. Releasing Jenkins would free up about $19.5 million. Rashawn Gary started off the season strong, but quickly faded and his level of effort seemed to drop too. I was never a fan of the Rashawn Gary extension when it happened. 4 years, $96 million put him in the elite category of pass rushers at the time, but he was never an elite talent. He did have some good games during his time as a Packer, but he also suffered a torn ACL. Now, some people will say that he never looked the same after, though I disagree. I never thought he was a top edge in the league, and he is still not to this day. The Parsons acquisition likely sped up the Packers' Gary breakup too, with Parsons inking a massive 4-year, $188 million extension. Releasing Gary would free up about $11 million. These two moves combined would put the Packers at effectively $9.5 million under the cap. Devonte Wyatt is set to play in 2026 under his 5th-year option, making almost $13 million. And according to Ken, an extension could drop that cap hit to as little as $6.5 million. Other veterans could be cut too. There are 5 players on the team who, if cut, would free up more than $2 million each. Keyshawn Nixon is one, and I'd go as far as saying that if they gained $0 from this release, that it would be worth it. He's not good, he's a head case, he's always running his mouth, and he commits far too many penalties. I want him gone regardless of the cap savings, but releasing him would save $5 million, so this is a legit option by the Packers. Aaron Banks is another cut candidate. Banks was an expensive acquisition last offseason, signing a 4-year, $77 million contract, which he did not live up to. He wasn't great for most of the year, though he did deal with some injuries. However, he has dealt with injuries in the past, so this shouldn't have been a major surprise to Packers brass. Though after getting healthier, he did start playing better down the stretch. We must also consider the rest of the offensive line. I've already suggested cutting Jenkins, but Rasheed Walker and Sean Ryan are also set to become free agents. And we'll get more into them in a bit, but would it be smart to lose 4 starting offensive linemen in one offseason? I'm not sure about that. Ultimately, I do think Banks remains a Packer in 2026. Isaiah McDuffie could be cut for a $3.7 million gain, and I have very mixed feelings about McDuffie. I wasn't particularly happy when they brought him back last year. They instead let Eric Wilson walk, and he got a fraction of what McDuffie got. And I'd argue he was the better player this year. He definitely made more splash plays, but I thought McDuffie had stretches of really solid run defense. If I remember correctly, I think he was great on Thanksgiving Day against Jahmyr Gibbs and the Lions. Now, Quay Walker is also set to become a free agent, and if they let him leave, then I think McDuffie stays. Due to his fairly low cap hit of under $5 million, I do think he remains in Green Bay. Xavier McKinney could be cut for a $7.6 million cap savings, though he'll still only be 28 and he's in his prime as one of the top safeties in the league, so I'm betting against this one. Lastly, Josh Jacobs can free up $8.3 million if cut, and I think this is a real possibility. I love Josh Jacobs. He's already one of my most favorite players of all time, but he did not look great this year. I know he was dealing with an injury and the offensive line play was not great, but I think this team needs a home run threat at running back, and he just isn't that at this point in his career. He's still only 28 years old, but I think they need someone who can rip off a 60-yarder. They need an explosive play threat on the ground, and he's just not that. I think it really depends on the running back free agent market though, as the Packers do not have a viable answer on the roster. They cannot depend on Marshawn Lloyd, and Wilson and Brooks are set to become free agents, but neither of those are big play threats anyway. I really like Kenneth Walker, but with Zach Charbonnet's ACL tear, I think it is less likely that Seattle lets him walk. Nate Hobbs was the other major signing last offseason, but releasing him would earn next to nothing in cap space, just under $1 million. The Packers and Hobbs are basically locked into another season together unless the Packers want to get rid of him for a reason unrelated to cap space. They could ask him to take a pay cut, but I am not sure how likely that is. They could also ask other players to take pay cuts to save cap space or kick money down the timeline by restructuring contracts to create cap space in 2026, but this also hurts them in future years. And lastly, trading players like Devontae Wyatt or Lucas Van Ness would create space too, but it seems unlikely considering their ages. So altogether, the Packers are quite a bit over the cap, but cuts, extensions, and restructures would give the Packers enough cap space to sign almost any player of their choosing. The number sounds bad, but they do have the flexibility to do so. So now that we know about the cap situation and potential cut candidates, let's look into the pending free agents. One of the most important pending free agents is Romeo Doubs. Now the Packers have 8 wide receivers under contract heading into the 2026 season, with 5 of them playing considerable roles throughout the 2025 season, those being Christian Watson, Matthew Golden, Dontavian Wicks, Jaden Reed, and Savion Williams. SpotTrack predicts Romeo to land a 4-year, $48 million contract, meaning an average of $12 million per year. That would be quite a large chunk of the Packers' cap space for a positional group that is probably already set. The Matthew Golden draft pick and the Christian Watson extension during the season were writings on the wall for Romeo Doubs' departure in my opinion. And I have very mixed feelings about Romeo. I absolutely hated the stunt he pulled in the 2024 season with him not showing up to practice for 2 straight days due to issues with his role in the offense. But then again, he had 2 phenomenal wildcard games against the Cowboys and the Bears. Unfortunately, I don't think he excels at any one thing more than anyone else in the wide receiver room, and to me, he's the odd man out. I do thank him for his big-time playoff performances, but I think his time is up and I am looking forward to Matthew Golden taking over his role. Quay Walker is another significant pending free agent for the Packers. The Packers have 4 linebackers rostered for 2026, but only 2 of those really played. Adrian Cooper is one, and he looks to be a superstar in the making, and Isaiah McDuffie, who we briefly discussed earlier, is the other. SpotTrack predicts a contract in the range of $8 to $10 million annually, whereas other sources say it could be as high as $15 to $17 million a year. It is important to note that the Packers declined his 5th-year option, which would have paid him $14.75 million next year. The Packers may have felt like he wasn't worth $14 million. Now, did he improve on that over the season? I don't know. I thought he had some great spurts in the run game and blitzing, but he's not great in coverage, which really hurt them. Personally, I don't really want them to pay him $15 million a year and would rather spend that money elsewhere. Moving on, not that it really affects the Packers next season, but Malik Willis is set to become a free agent. I hope that he gets paid and that he has the opportunity to compete and even win a starting role somewhere else in the NFL. I was very worried after Love got hurt against the Eagles in Brazil because I didn't think Malik was any good, but I was very much wrong. I thought he was awesome in the games he played in over the last 2 years, and I will forever be a Malik Willis fan. Rasheed Walker has been the starting left tackle for the Packers for a few years now, and his contract is up, with SpotTrack projecting a deal with an average annual value of over $20 million. He struggled at times this season, but he's been a solid starter and a phenomenal value considering he was drafted in the 7th round. It is likely that Jordan Morgan is going to take over at left tackle, meaning Rasheed Walker's time in Green Bay is up. I think he got more hate than deserved from the fans and the head coach. He's a solid player that finally has the chance to get paid, and likely will, but just not by the Packers. Staying on the offensive line, inside lineman Sean Ryan is another pending free agent. Originally a guard, he transitioned to center once Elton Jenkins got hurt. I think he's better in the run game than the pass game, but he is a startable player in the NFL. SpotTrack predicts a contract averaging $6.5 million annually, which seems doable for the Packers. Green Bay does have Jacob Monk rostered for 2026, but he hasn't played for them much at all. They can also look elsewhere in free agency or fill the need through the draft. And I can assure you they will draft at least one offensive lineman, but will he be ready to play in the NFL is the question. Ultimately, for the right price, I think they do bring back Ryan. Kingsley Enagbare quickly became a fan favorite this season, with him seemingly producing more than Rashawn Gary down the stretch. It has almost come to a consensus on Twitter that the Packers should cut Gary and re-sign Enagbare. SpotTrack predicts Kingsley's contract to average just under $6 million a year, which I would be all in for. My thing is, I think he's going to be quite a bit more expensive than that. I think he's a solid edge that is capable of playing the run and the pass. I would love for him to be back and replace Gary next year, but I really do think his play in the second half of the season outpriced him from the Packers. Trayvon Diggs, special teamer Nick Neiman, and tight end John Fitzpatrick, who tore his Achilles in Week 17, are the only other unrestricted free agents that the Packers have. I would like to see Diggs return for the right price to add competition and ball skills to the cornerback room, but SpotTrack's $7.5 million average seems a bit high. Of the latter two, both would be cheap players, and Neiman could be back for special teams reasons, but I'd guess Fitzpatrick would not be re-signed due to his injury. The Packers also have 8 restricted free agents. RFAs can sign with any team in free agency, but if the original team, meaning the Packers, places a tender on them, then the signing team has to give up compensation to the original team in terms of NFL draft capital. Though there is also the right of first refusal, which is the cheapest tender, costing $3.5 million, and allows the Packers to match any deal. I'm not sure any of the Packers' RFAs are worth $3.5 million, and those include Brenton Cox, Chris Brooks, Darian Kinnard, Emmanuel Wilson, Jonathan Ford, Aaron Mosby, Josh Wiley, and Zane Anderson. Though the Packers do not have to place a tender and could sign them for less. They just risk other teams signing them. Brenton Cox and Darian Kinnard could be good depth pieces at their positional groups, and I would like to see Zane Anderson back as a solid special teamer and even a deeper option at safety. This leaves the Packers with 3 final free agents, plus a practice squad player that are all exclusive rights free agents. The Packers can sign these players to a 1-year minimum salary with no guarantee, so these are essentially risk-free. Bo Melton, Kamal Haddon, Donovan Jennings, and practice squad player Lesadis Smith will all likely be back under this contract. This new tool on sticktothemodel.com allows you to become a general manager and take control of any team's offseason. So I went ahead and did that with the Packers, and this is what I came up with. As discussed, I cut Gary, Jenkins, and Nixon to clear up about $35 million in cap space. I extended Devontae Wyatt, which added another $5.7 million. Wyatt's extension on the site was 4 years with an average value of about $16 million. I think this is going to be closer to $20 million, which would add a little bit less of cap space. I then re-signed Enagbare to a 2-year deal averaging $8.5 million, Diggs to a 2-year deal averaging $5.4 million, Ryan to a 1-year deal for $2.3 million, Kinnard to a 1-year deal for $1.6 million, and signed the 4 ERFAs to the minimum, which is about $1 million each. I didn't care that deeply about the draft, I just wanted to include it for cap purposes. This then leaves the Packers with over $18 million left to go re-sign Quay Walker or sign an outside free agent. They also have the ability to create more space with the strategies discussed earlier. Like I said, it seemed a bit brutal at first, but they do have options. I didn't want to get into outside free agents in this video, as this was only about the Packers' current roster and decisions. I will have a free agency video out in the next couple weeks though. So let me know what you guys think about the Packers offseason situation, and if you agree or disagree with any of my opinions in the comments below.